Hi guys, welcome back for episode number 65 of the weekly playback. So this week I will be talking about a couple of games that I'm pretty excited about. So I'll be talking about Fractured Sky, which is coming to Kickstarter this month from IV Games. I'll be talking about Classic Art and Deadly Dowagers. But before I begin, I just want to say, in case I seem a little bit off today, I've been having a really rough week. I've been dealing with a personal life experience that has not been fun to deal with, but I think it's something that most people go through at least once in their life, at least once, maybe multiple times, but you know, so maybe I'll talk a little bit about that at the end, but in case I don't seem as happy or chipper or whatever as usual, that is why. So anyway, so let's get into the games that I played. The first one I'll talk about is Classic Art because I did play it twice. So this is a re-implementation of a Rainier Knizia game that is called Members Only. I do not know when Members Only came out, but this is being released this month in retail stores, I believe. So it's for 2 to 5 players. In this game, you are predicting how many works of art are going to be present in 5 different exhibitions. So the riskier your predictions, the more you will score, but if you're incorrect, that will of course negatively impact you. So this edition again is for 2 to 5 players. I played it once at 2 players and once at 5 players. So I can talk a bit about both player counts and what I liked and didn't like. So here is the board. So you have 5 different colored areas. So green is going to be landscape, yellow is portrait if I remember correctly, gray is sculptures, red is still life, and blue is sketch. And I'll just show you some examples of artwork. And you are going to be placing your prediction tokens on these empty circles, and it'll tell you how many cards need to be present at the end of the season and how many points you will score depending on how many prediction tokens you put there. And then this is the score tracker in which you will place your score markers. So you have 5 score markers and, you know, 1 for each different type of artwork, and you'll go up based on the number of points. The game end will be triggered once all 5 categories have at least 1 score marker at 5 or above. That's when the game ends. So let me just show you some artwork examples. So there are 2 different kinds of artworks for each category. So just an example, so I can explain how that part of the game works. Okay, so here we have landscape. So as you will see, this landscape is solid green, this is white. This is an on loan card. So there are 11, I believe, regular cards of each type. Yes, there's 11 regular artwork cards of each type, and then 2 on loan cards for each category. When you are making your predictions, so I guess I'll talk a little bit about gameplay. So gameplay goes like this. So at the beginning of each round, depending on the number of players, you will be dealt a certain number of cards. In a 5-player game, that's 7 cards each. At the beginning of the game, you have the ability to make a prediction at the beginning of each season, rather. So at the beginning of each round, you have the ability to make a prediction with your prediction tokens. You have a certain number of prediction tokens plus a high risk token. Now, this is where the rule book, I feel like, could have been a bit clearer because, you know, even when we were playing a 5-player game, like, we read the rules over and over trying to understand whether, because before the season begins, you are able to make a prediction just by looking at your own hand of cards if you want to, before people actually start playing cards. It says you can either, so the rule book says, a player may place 1 of their prediction tokens or double down by placing 2 of their prediction tokens in a single unoccupied exhibition space. And then it says if a player places tokens during their setup turn, the player also places their high risk token on this prediction. This is the only use for the high risk token, which otherwise remains unused for the rest of the season. Now, how many tokens you have in a prediction spot is important because you will multiply the number of tokens by the number of points if your prediction turned out to be correct. So for example, if I predicted there were going to be 4 or fewer cards of the landscape type by the end of the season, I would multiply my number of tokens by 1 point, and that would be the number of points I get for that season for landscape category. So it's a bit unclear to us, all 5 of us, whether when it says 2 or more, whether that means 2 regular tokens and then you just simply place your high risk token there, but then like, what does the high risk token mean? Or is the one token your regular token, and then your high risk token counts as your second token for that category? So if you did guess correctly, then you would multiply 2 by whatever, but if you guessed incorrectly, you would lose both of these and the high risk token would go away, because the high risk token can only be used at the beginning of the season during the prediction phase before players start playing their cards. So I really feel like the rulebook was really unclear on this, and we just had to say, okay, you can place one regular token and then your high risk token, which will count as your second token. If you're correct, you'll multiply 2 by whatever. If you're incorrect, you would lose both of these, including your high risk token. You cannot use your high risk token during regular predictions, like when you're playing the game and during the season and making regular predictions. So I feel like the rulebook could have been a bit more clear about that. Another thing it was not clear on was if there are no artworks of a certain type in a certain category, does that mean all the people who said rare like score? Like if there's 0 artworks, do they get to score because there's 4 or fewer? So we house ruled no, that we house ruled there has to be at least 1 card for you to score in the rare category, which is the 4 or fewer, 3 or fewer, whatever. So that's the way we did it. So this is how you're going to play. You're going to have 7 cards in your hand, and of course the first player marker will, rotate throughout the game. It'll go around. So you're going to have 7 cards, and on your turn you will play 2 cards. So again, this is for a 5-player game. You're going to play 2 cards in their categories. So now if you play an on loan card, if there was a regular artwork card there, an on-loan card would remove itself and the regular card. If you play an on-loan card and there was no other card of that category there, then the next regular card that is played there would get removed with the on-loan card. So on-loan cards basically remove themselves and 1 regular card in that category. So you're going to play 2 cards, and then of course you can make a prediction. You can make a prediction on an empty spot. And you can only make 1 double down prediction once per season, meaning you can only place 2 tokens once per season. So again, that brings up the question, like, does that mean that your prediction before players start placing their cards does not count as the double down? Or can you do a double down before starting the season and then do another double down once players start playing their cards? Like, again, the rulebook provided no clarification on that. So I feel like we really need some clarifications on some of the rules. But we played that you can double down before players start playing their cards and then once per the season. So you're going to place your prediction tokens again on one of these numbers. So this would score you 5 points per prediction token there if it ends up being a rare exhibition at the end of the game where there's 1 or fewer cards exhibited. So this is the rare, and then this is like the grand show or whatever, where you're predicting that there's going to be 5 or more cards, 6 or more, 7 or more, or 8 or more. Sorry, I realize now that that's upside down. So there we go. So yeah, so you have like, so once you play your 2 cards, you can make a prediction or not, and then it's the next player's turn. Once all players have 3 cards remaining in hand, you are going to discard 1 card. Everyone's going to discard 1 card simultaneously, and then reveal the last 2 cards simultaneously and place them down. So again, like if I place this in the red section, that would remove this card and a regular artwork card if there is a regular artwork card there, and so on. Then you're going to score, and you're going to see whose predictions were correct, and if your predictions were correct, you'll get to keep your prediction tokens. If your predictions were not correct, you lose those prediction tokens. And in the way we played, you would also lose your high risk token, which of course you only have 1 of, and which you were again only allowed to use before the start of the season. So that's how a regular game plays of 3 to 5 players. In a 2-player game, you're going to have the house deck. The house deck is going to be comprised of 10 cards. Each player will have 11 cards in a 2-player game, and then the house deck has 10 cards, and after you play your 2 cards, then the house deck will reveal 2 cards and those will get played. And that's how that happens throughout the rest of the game. So I did not like the randomness of a 2-player game because you have no idea what's in the house deck. You're not like dealing with an actual person who is really just trying to influence the market, and like you're not really like playing mind games with other players. So it's really just just completely random and not as fun in a two-player game, because it's just, you're not playing with a human. And when you're playing with a human, you know, that's when you're really trying to guess who's going to do what. Like you're looking at which predictions people are making, trying to guess which cards they might have in hand. Like especially if someone made a prediction for, like, say the red still life category, but they haven't yet played any red cards, you might guess, okay, maybe they have some red cards remaining in their hand for the very last round that they're going to play when we all play our cards simultaneously. So you have those kinds of thoughts going through your head where you're trying to guess which cards people have in their hand. But with a two-player game, the house deck just completely messes that up entirely, because it's just completely random cards. So I do not recommend this at a two-player count at all. Unless you enjoy randomness and you're fine with just things being completely messed up by a completely random deck, then sure, you should play it at 2 players. But I would not recommend it at a 2-player count. At 5 players, I think it's really, really great. I came in last place, of course. So, but I really enjoyed my 5-player play of this. So again, that is classic art, and those were my issues. And if anyone has played members only, I don't know if any of the rules changed between, the previous editions of this game and this game, but I would really like to know, if anyone has answers for my questions about the prediction tokens, or whether 0 cards counts towards a win for the rare category, let me know. So that would be helpful. But yeah, so that was classic art. So again, I believe that's coming in retail like on April 11th or something like that. Moving on, let's talk about Fractured Sky, which is coming onto Kickstarter on April 11th, actually. If I can just pull it up. Why is my internet? Well, my internet is really slow. Well, I'll just show you the box here. Okay, so Fractured Sky is a game for 1 to 5 players, and it is designed by Austin Harrison, Max Anderson, and Zach Dixon, and it's published by Ivy Games. So again, this is coming to Kickstarter on April 11th. So this is it's a bluffing game, kind of. It's an area majority game and a bidding game and kind of a deduction game a little bit, but not really, not deduction in the sense that you can actually figure out what people have bid, but deduction in the sense that you might want to try to guess what people have bid in different locations. And you might be able to guess a little bit based on certain things, but let me just show you the board and then I'll get into the gameplay. So here is the board for the 5-player side of this game. And then if you're playing up to 3 players, 1 to 3 players, you're going to use this side of the board. So yeah. So you have different islands and you have different locations like that connect to different islands in which you can place fortresses and markets, and I will explain what all of those do. So this is the retail version of the game. So in the retail version, so in the deluxe version, you're going to have these magnets that like stick onto your bidding tokens, and you'll have like your spaceships, like your airships, like popping out from the board on top of these magnets, which have your bid numbers on them. In the retail version, you're just basically putting it like face down, so you see your airships on the other side. 2 of the numbers will have white airships on them, which indicates to the other players that you bid either a 1 or a 10. So the 1 and 10 tokens have white airships to distinguish them from the rest of the airships in this game. And your airships, they're numbered like 3 to, they're numbered basically 0 to 10. The round ends for you once you have placed 3 airships out on the board. So on your turn for an action, you can either, well, I'll get into the actions in a bit, but your airships cannot total more than 10 total. And I'll get into that in a bit. So you have this one board that is placed underneath the main board, and above this, you're going to have different objective cards, 1 per round. So there are 5 rounds in this game, and you're going to have different location cards underneath here placed face down. So 1 in the first round, 2 in the second round, 3 in the third round, and so on. And then you're also going to have a location card that is face up. So the location cards are going to tell you, so again, in a game, you're going to have 1 face-up card, which is going to tell you which place will award a starfall at the end of the game, end of the round, for the person who bid highest there, or who has the most troop power, not necessarily who bid highest, but who has the most troop power. And of course your bid contributes to troop power, but so do fortresses and skimmers, which I'll get into in a minute. The face down cards, you're going to again have a face down card in round 1, just 1, in round 2, 2, and then the rest of the cards will be in a separate pile. So the face down card you'll be able to take a look at by paying 2 gold. So if you want to look at which card is face down, you can pay 2 gold to look at it, and then that will tell you which location will also be awarded a starfall at the end of the round. And then additionally, you can take a resource if you want to that was depicted on that card that you just peeked at. So in this case, let's suppose I peeked at this card during the game for one of my turns. I could take either a gold or a wood and then place my peek token on the gold or the wood depending on which resource I took. Alternatively, I could not take a resource if I don't want to indicate to other people which location might be on this card, and just leave my peek token in the generic area. So if you take a resource, it's kind of going to, give an indication to other people which location might be on that card, because again, not all the locations on the board give all the same resources. So like some of the locations may give 2 gold, some might give 2 stones, some might give a gold and a stone, and so on. So by claiming a resource when you peek at a card, you're kind of giving an indication to other people which location might be on that card. If you are the first person to place a airship in a location, you get to collect a card from the face down pile, which will indicate to you where the starfalls are not. This is secret and you just keep it to yourself. So the different actions you can take in this game are to scout, which is to peek at the location to see where there might be a hidden starfall, where there will be, not might be. You can peek, you can spend 2 of any resources to look at the objective card. Now all 5 objective cards will be out, and you can spend resources to look at any of the objective cards for the current round or for future rounds, and you will place a peek token underneath the objective that you looked at. This is not a memory game, so if you forget what was there, you can always look at the same card again, and your token underneath that card will show other players that you've already paid to look at it, so you will be able to look at it again if you need to. At any point in time, you can trade 2 of any resources for 1 of any other resource. So you can place an airship token. So again, you have like a certain number of these airship tokens that have bids on them. Your total airship token bids cannot outnumber 10. If they do, you'll have to subtract the difference between what your total is and 10 from each individual airship in each location. And of course, the airships you place, those are your troop powers. You can build a fortress, so you can pay 3 stone to build a fortress in a certain location, which will connect to 1 or more areas typically. So like for example, if you build a fortress in this location, it would connect to this area and connect to this area and this area as well. So this island, and this island. So fortresses again provide +1 troop power to adjacent islands with an airship, or you can pay 1 stone and 1 wood to add a skimmer to an island, which will give you 1 troop power. You can pay 1 gold and 2 wood to add a market somewhere. And again, markets go in those hexagonal spaces as well, which connect to multiple locations, and you will be able to collect more resources if you are able to score in that location at the end of the round. So again, you will go through, starting with the first player and taking your actions. You start the game with 4 resources. For your beginner game, it's recommended that you start with 2 wood and 2 gold, I believe. And you're just taking actions, and then once someone has placed their 3rd airship, they will move their turn order marker to the next row on any number turn order they want. If they place it on 4 or 5, they will also get to collect a gold. So once the last player has placed all 3 airships, at that point you are going to reveal the objective card, and whoever met this objective will get a starfall. So the objective is to get the most starfall tokens by the end of the game. I think I called them a shard before in my Instagram post, but I think they're called starfalls. So you want the most of those by the end of the game in order to win. So first you check to see who won the objective. The tiebreaker goes, if there's a tie, it goes to the first person in turn order. power. I know that that's what happens for when you're comparing true power, but I think maybe for objective as well. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then you're going to reveal the hidden location and also score the location that was visible to everyone. So again, there was one public location. So for each round, there's going to be one public location, and then for each round, there will be the hidden locations that have starfalls. And then you're going to compare true power by, again, looking at fortresses, skimmers, and airship power. And then whoever has the most true power will get the starfall from that location. And then the other players will, depending on order of true power, the next highest true power person will get to collect both resources from the location. So like, for example, if we were scoring for careening cliffs, the second player would get to collect 1 gold and 1 stone, but if they had a market connected to it, they could collect an additional resource of one of those. If they had 2 markets connected to careening cliffs, they could collect 2 additional resources. So that's where markets come in handy, and you definitely want to place markets because you need resources in this game. The third player will get to collect 1 resource, and then if there was a 4th player who was also in that location, and came in 4th in terms of true power, they won't get anything. So yeah, so that's how that goes. So again, you're going to have more and more locations as the rounds progress, and you're going to have all these objective cards, 1 per round, that will be revealed, and then whoever has the most starfalls at the end of the game will win. I found it really hard in the beginning to collect resources. Like in the very beginning of the game, it's really hard because you only start with 4 resources in hand, and if you spend your 2 gold to look at a location, like boom, like you really can't do anything else at that point. All you can do is place airships then. So you might be able to guess and place airships in other locations, but like you can't build anything because building costs resources. So you won't be able to build like, say, a fortress, or because like in the beginning of the game you had 2 gold and 2 wood, you spent your 2 gold to peek at the hidden location card, then you can't build anything. You can't build a market, you can't build a fortress, you can't build a skimmer. And if you looked at that card and you placed an airship somewhere, then people can kind of guess where that location is, because in the first round there's only 1 hidden location. So I found it really hard, and so did the other players, to get resources in this game in the beginning of the game. But as the game progresses, you're going to be able to get more and more resources as you're starting to build more markets and stuff. Our game ended in a 5-way tie. So one of the questions we did have is like, we assumed that when you are breaking ties, you are looking at who the first player in turn order was for the round you just finished. Because when you finish your turn, you're moving your turn order marker up into the next location. So you have to remember what your turn order was in case you have to break ties, because we believe that it has to do with the round you just finished, because it wouldn't make sense if you're looking at turn order to break ties based on a round that you haven't even started yet. So I think the rulebook could use a little bit of clarification on that, but that's the way we did it. So yeah, at the end of the game, there was a 5-way tie. So if you add up the number of starfalls from all of the location cards that would be present in each round, plus the non-hidden location, and then plus all of the objectives, it equals 25 starfalls. And we ended up having them completely evenly distributed in our game. So it ended up being, in our 5-player game, each player ended the game with 5 starfalls each, which is just crazy. It was a 5-way tie. So of course the win went to the person who was first in turn order in the penultimate, the second to last round. No, in the last round, pardon me, in the last round, who was the first player in the last round. Yeah, so that was the game we played. I find that you could be a little bit resource starved in like the first round or 2 of the game, but as the game progresses, you won't be as resource starved. So yeah, it's an interesting game. I think I'd like to play it again now that I know the rules. Maybe get some clarifications on some of the rules. We did have some questions as we were playing, but now I'm having a bit of trouble remembering what those questions were as well. Oh yeah, so one of the things that came up, and I even watched a playthrough, because I noticed that when So maybe they didn't have this issue, but like the rule book says you can't have your airships totaling more than 10. Because if you do, then you have to subtract. So like here's the example. So you can't have your airship true power totaling more than 10, because like in this case, they went over by 2. So then each airship token would be reduced by 2 in each location. One of the playthroughs I watched a bit of, they did not reveal like all of the airships at the same time before looking at each location. They would go to a location, reveal the airships, and then decide based on just those airships who won that location based on true power. But if the case is that all 3 of your airships cannot total more than 10, then that would indicate to me that you have to reveal all of them on the board to see if someone went over by 10, because then you would have to subtract from individual airships before you start scoring certain regions. But maybe they just knew that no one was going to go over 10, so maybe that's why they didn't reveal all at the same time, because they felt that they didn't need to. I don't know. But that was just something that I was a little bit curious about from watching a playthrough, like why they wouldn't reveal all the airships in the beginning. So yeah, so I think if you like hidden bidding games, you would enjoy this. You know, maybe, but with more plays, maybe I wouldn't feel as resource starved in the beginning. Maybe I would like pursue a different strategy and not look at the hidden card in the beginning and spend my resources that way. Maybe I would just try to make a guess instead and place try to build a market instead of spending my gold and looking at a location, because again, resources can be really hard to come by until you start getting those markets out, because especially if you, yeah, so that's it really. I guess that's it really. Yeah, resources can just be a little bit hard to come by. Otherwise, again, it's an IV Games game, so production quality is outstanding even for this retail edition. Yeah, it's a fun game. But yeah, I think I want to play it a couple more times before I get a better feel for it, I think. But yeah, so that's one more game I played. And then the last game I will talk about that I played, actually I played a couple more games than this, but I'll talk about those very briefly. So another game I played in the last week was Deadly Dowagers. In fact, I just played it yesterday. So I'm shooting this video on Sunday, April 2nd, in case anyone is wondering. So I played Deadly Dowagers, which is a game for 2 to 6 players designed by Sarah Shipp, and the art is done by Mercedes Palacios, and it's published by Sparkworks and Tabletop Tycoon. So this just came out in March. Oh, sorry, I was holding it upside down. This just came out in March, I believe. So in this game, you are dowagers, like, wealthy women, and you, I guess you're wealthy, I don't know, because you have to pay dowry in order to marry these men in this game, and you are trying to earn enough money by marrying the right people and then killing them off at the right time in order to earn enough money to hopefully marry the Duke. The objective in this game is to marry the Duke. The first player to marry the Duke will win. So it's a really fun game. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. So each player is going to have like a character board, and that character board is going to have your infamy tracker. So if you want to marry the Duke, you cannot have more than 9 infamy. So to marry different people in this game, you have to be mindful of how much infamy you have, in addition to paying the dowry cost for those different men. So for example, let me just find some of the men that you will be marrying in this game and then killing off. So yeah, so it's fun. Like all of these men cards, they have gravestones on the back, because once you kill them over, you place the gravestone next to your player board, and it will be, you'll gain an infamy every time you score when you do the husband stage of the game. So there are like different people you can marry, and it'll tell you how much money you have to pay to marry someone. So for like example, the dowry for this husband is 2, and you will gain 2 infamy as well when you marry him. And you can promote men up in status by paying crowns, which will allow you to earn more money when you kill them. So yeah, so it's a fun game. I cannot find the Duke. Where is the Duke? So the Duke, here's the Duke. So in order to marry the Duke, you're going to need 120 crowns, but you can have no more than 9 infamy. Oh, sorry, that was how many. So in these ones, in the regular non-nobles, you'll gain infamy when you marry them. But then there are nobles which shows you how many max infamy you can have in order to marry them. So if you wanted to marry this guy, you can only have a max of 10 infamy to marry him. And the nobles, of course, have higher dowries, and they give you special abilities. But in order to marry the duke, and the first player to marry the duke, you have to have 120 crowns for dowry and no more than 9 infamy. And whoever marries him first wins. So you're going to have like different cards beneath your player board, like farm cards and stuff like that. So or shipping cards. So, it's a bit of a set collection game. Like, so for example, it's a drafting game. So at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of a round, each player is going to have, so I played a 5-player game of this. Yeah, you get 5 cards in your hand, you pick one, and then, give the hand to the rest of the player on your left, and then so on. And when you have 4 cards in hand, the last one gets discarded. So it's a draft that way. And then at the end of a round, you have to discard down to 3 if you did not, use all of your cards. You can have no more than 3 cards before you start the next round and do another draft of 4 cards. So you're playing different cards during the first round. So during the first phase of a round, you have the invest phase, in which you can play cards like this. Like, you can add shipping cards next to your player board, which are like set collection cards, and for which you'll collect money when your husband dies. So the more of these you have, the more money you collect. You can play cards like this, like have an affair and get money from the bank. So those are like immediate effect cards. You can play a mill card, which will allow you to collect money when your husband dies, when you kill him. You can have estate cards. You can have farms, and then you can place rent cards on top of estates or farms, which will let you collect extra money. So during the invest phase, you're playing different kinds of cards, which will allow you to gain money, basically. Right immediately by like having an affair or preparing for the future for when you kill your husband. Then you have the husband phase, where you can either remarry if you currently do not have a husband and you have a remarry card in your hand. If you don't have a remarry card in your hand and you want to elope, you can elope. Of course, that will bring up your infamy. So you have to gain 5 infamy if you want to elope. So it's better to wait until you have a remarry card in your hand, which are not that hard to come by. So let me just show you a remarry card. Well, I can't find a remarry card right now, but those are not too hard to come by. During the husband stage, you can kill your husband. So there's different kinds of ways to kill your husband. So like this one is fireplace poker. If you use this one, it would gain you 4 infamy, but like there are easier ways to kill your husband. Like, so for example, natural causes. If you kill him by natural causes, you gain 0 infamy. So there are different ways. So you might want to wait until you get one that allows you to kill him, that will, get you less infamy. There are ways to remove infamy by playing charity cards during the invest phase. So let me just see if I can find a charity card. I cannot right now, but there's charity card. Oh, here we go. So you can give charity to another player and reduce your infamy by 2. And then if you have certain husbands, like so a certain noble husband would allow you to reduce your infamy by even more if you're married to him when you play a charity card, because different husbands have different abilities. So like this one, double all infamy reduction. So if you played a charity card, you would be able to double your infamy reduction with that card. So during the husband phase, you can either remarry, you can kill your husband, or you can elope. And then if you did kill your husband, if he dies, then you collect all the money from the income phase. So you're going to trigger all of the income that you have. So that would be from like your shipyard, if you had shipping, so you would collect from that. You would collect money from your husband, because when they die, you get money from them, and so on. And then you remove those cards. You remove any cards that allowed you to collect money after you killed your husband. And then you start, then you have the housekeeping phase, where you discard down to 3 cards in case you didn't play that many cards, and then so on. And you continue in this way. So you are just basically trying to get your husband hopefully to such a level that when you kill him, you'll collect quite a bit of money so that you can start marrying up. And also when you kill your husbands, they go in the graveyard. but when you collect income for each husband you have in the graveyard, you will gain 1 infamy. So throughout this game, what you're trying to do is collect more and more money, but also try to reduce your infamy so that hopefully you can marry the Duke first. It was a really fun game. I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. So yeah, it's a really good game. So if you're looking for like a fun kind of game like this, I don't know, it's like maybe a little bit of set collection. I don't know what else. Let me see what else they have for mechanics listed here. But yeah, everyone enjoyed it. So yeah, close drafting, hand management, and then race. Yeah, the theme is really fun too. So I would definitely recommend this game. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, definitely check out Deadly Dowagers. I would definitely play this again. The rule is that if 2 people are going for the, because there's a limited number of husbands in this game, because when you kill them, you have to place them in your graveyard next to your player board. So, you know, there are a limited number of husbands of the different types. So the rule is the first person who, like, basically touch that husband is the one who gets to keep them. So, you know, that can be a little bit of an unfair rule depending on how you're all seated around the different cards and stuff. So one thing I do think that they need to maybe come up with is a better like tiebreaker. So like, for example, at the end of the game, 2 players in the last round were ready to marry the Duke. And the question was, who gets to marry the Duke? Like, so we just basically used one of those things that you touch, and whoever finger came up, like circle came up on the phone, was the one who would get to marry the Duke. But that seems a bit unfair. So I think a better way of doing it would have been to see who has the lower amount of infamy, and they're the ones who get to marry the Duke. So I think that there should have been a better tiebreaker, to be honest. Okay, so it says if 2 more players are able to marry the Duke during the husband phase by having no husband, no more than 9 infamy, blah, 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 the player, okay, actually this one addresses who would get it. So the player with the most money left wins, and then the player with the least infamy wins. Okay, so they did address that, but for other ties, you had to see who was the one who got the husband first. So yeah, oops. Maybe I'll tell the players that I played with that it would have been the player with the most money, because we actually didn't even check that. So never mind, so that's fine. So in case of marrying the Duke, I think that's correct. The player with the most money left would win. And then if there's still a tie, then the player with the least infamy wins. And then any further ties should be settled in a rematch of the game. Okay. So that's good. So yeah, so that was Deadly Dowagers. So I enjoyed my play of that, and I will definitely play that again. A couple other games I played that I'm not going to talk about in detail too much, especially one of them. It's Chai Tea for Two. So if you guys know Steeped Games, they did that bigger game of Chai, which had like these really nice deluxe components, and then they had this game on Kickstarter, which I covered a couple years ago now, called Chai Tea for Two. Unfortunately, it has not delivered to backers yet, but one of my new gaming friends wanted to play Chai Tea for Two, so we played it, but I'm not going to talk about it right now because, you know, unfortunately, it remains to be seen whether it will be delivered to backers, so I won't even go into that. And then another game I played, which I'd never played before, is called The Game, in which you have, you know, players are dealt a certain number of cards, and you have two cards with the number 1 on them and 2 cards with the number 10 on them, and without talking you need to try to eliminate all of your cards in like either ascending order or descending order on the hundreds, but they don't have to be like go from like 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Like it can go like from 1 to 5 to like 10 and so on, as long as it's ascending on top of the ones and descending on top of the hundreds, and you just need to get through all of the cards. So that was my first time playing that game, and we ended the game with only 1 card that was not placed correctly. So I guess that was a pretty good game for that. That's what I've been told. I've been told that it's really hard to win the game. So yeah, so those were the games I played in the last week. So the games I'm backing, actually I played another game of Passengers, which is a game I've covered for its Kickstarter. So Passengers, it's a social deduction game. I played a 5-player game of it again. So the first time I played it was a 5-player game, and again I played a 5-player game of it. I will say that, you know, in terms of a social deduction game, like it's you know, it's not like Secret Hitler, in which you can kind of start to get an idea of who someone might be, what their allegiance might be based on how they vote and things like that. There's no indication of, you know, you can't find out who someone is in this game, and if you just ask someone, there's no reason to, you know, believe them or not believe them, because you have like no way of really discerning who someone is. And there's only 3 rounds in this game, so, you know, I don't know, I feel like I need to get a few more plays of it, but I feel like it's kind of like, I feel like maybe it needed a bit more rounds or some other mechanism in the game for you to kind of, you know, get that whole bluffing and deduction aspect about who players might be, because it's a very short deduction game and there's not much going on for you to really discern who someone might be. So I think that needs a couple more plays for me to really maybe get a feel for it. I don't know. So yeah, so but that I'm backing at $1 to get a production copy of. I'm actually also backing this Mr. Meeple Board Games t-shirt season 6. So a few years ago, I think back in 2019, I had backed his campaign and gotten I Play Purple. But this time I'm backing for the cat playing, there's like a shirt with cats playing board games, so I'm backing for that. I do like one of the other shirts, maybe I'll up it to 2, but I don't know. I also added on a meeple pillow, the purple meeple pillow, and a pair of socks. So I'm already a little bit high on that, so I don't know. So I might not back 2 shirts because that might get a bit more pricey. It's already a bit pricey for me. So yeah, so I'm backing those. I'm not calling anything at the moment, but you know, that list will grow as I start unpacking more and more board games, which I still have a lot to do. So let's just go on to games that I received. So one of the games, the only one I have to show this week, is Kiwi Chow Down. So this was a game that I was super duper excited about, and it arrived. So I backed the deluxe edition. I do find it a bit difficult to fit everything into the box. There's a little bit of lift. So you have like these like boards for which you're going to make out the map, and then I think these are like player boards. So the deluxe edition comes with a 5th player, or is it 6th? No, 5th, yeah. And then let me just show you the insert. So the insert does provide space for all of the extra minis that you get with the deluxe edition, which is nice. I did back the deluxe edition, so it comes with these custom sleeves that have like Kiwi Chow Down on the back. However, it prevents you from seeing text on certain cards. So for example, like the player aid. So like I might just go and put the cards in which you need to see both sides in regular sleeves, like regular clear sleeves, because the back like prevents you from being able to read stuff then. Or maybe I should just alternate. Maybe I should put like some of them this way and then some cards the other way, and then players can just share these player aids. Maybe that's a solution for that. And then you have these really nice cloth bags that contain several different kinds of tokens. These are cardboard tokens, but they're pretty nice quality. And then there's some more tokens in the brown bag, which is also really nice. The deluxe edition comes with 1 green miniature of some kind, some weird neon green looking miniature. The different player pieces, so I just showed you the player pieces like this, and then each player also I think gets like some like squares or something of their own color, and cards. And then you have like at the bottom all these miniatures, which again is nice that they made room for all of the miniatures even if you have the deluxe edition. So that is really nice. So I'll just show you a couple. So here is something, I don't know, is that supposed to be an elephant? What is that? Doesn't make sense for it to be an elephant. I don't know. Oh, get back in. Okay, here is like some, it looks like a tree or something. I don't know. I have no idea. And then, oh, these, I think, oh, these are snails, I think. Yeah, these are cute. Cute little snails. No idea. I have no idea what any of this stuff is supposed to be. I don't know. Okay, so yeah, so there's like a bunch of different miniatures, which are cute. So yeah, so Oops, just dropped my card. So yeah, it comes with a lot of different cards. I really like the feel of the sleeves. Oh no, come back. Oh well, I'll get that later. So yeah, I really like the feel of the sleeves, but again, you cannot read everything on the other side. And there are other cards as well, which have text on both sides. So yeah, I can't find them right now, but I do foresee that being a problem. But the feel of these cards is really nice. So it would have been nice if they, you know, provided some sleeves that didn't cover stuff that you need to see. So like, for example, like this card, it says war for something. So yeah, and then there were some other cards that had text on the other side too. But yeah, let me know if you backed this and if you received it and if you've played it yet. But now that I've started making new gaming friends, I hope I can play this. It would be nice to play. So yeah, so I've really had to, so just an update, because I kind of mentioned earlier that I'm going through some personal stuff. So like when I moved a bit farther away from Ithaca to like a different location, and the only gaming friend I had was my significant other, and we recently broke up. So last Saturday, so not yesterday, but the Saturday before. So it's been a very rough week. So yeah, he was the one who, you know, was my main gaming partner, and he was the one who actually, you know, said I should have scored less while we were playing Cosmic Frog, which, you know, I didn't like. And funnily enough, like when I posted about that on a Facebook group and people commented, a lot of the comments were like, oh, if that's your significant other, you should definitely break up with them. Like, that's a huge red flag. Like, they have issues, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I guess, you know, they, you know, we didn't break up because of that. Like, he didn't even see my video or anything in which I talked about it. But I guess I won't go into the reasons why, but it's funny now, I guess, kind of. It's sad. I've been very sad, but it's kind of funny just thinking about how people commented that we should not be together. Like, someone who is that, like, you know, petty when it comes to winning, that they would want you to lose by even more. Like, I don't know, but you know, no one's perfect, whatever. So anyway, so that's what I've been dealing with. So I've been getting out more. So I am close enough to Millennium Games, so I started going to their game nights. So I've been to 2 game nights at Millennium Games in Rochester now, and I've made some new gaming friends already. Someone on Instagram saw that I was at Millennium Games and asked me if I wanted to join them for games, and I said yes. So I've gamed with them, and they're friends now twice, which has been really nice. So I am starting to make more gaming friends, which I'm happy about. And hopefully that will help me to heal and move on with my life as well, I hope. So yeah, so that is an update on my personal life. So yeah, so anyway, so it kind of related to last week's question about, you know, someone who wanted you to lose more than you did lose by. So it was just kind of, you know, a little bit related to it, I guess, based on who the person was and what's going on in my life. So anyway, moving on. Questions and commentary. So this kind of relates to classic art. So when you have a game that's like, you know, it says for 2 to 5 players, but then if you're playing 2 players, you need to play with the 3rd player, that adds a complete randomness, like a total randomness to the game. Is it really worth it at that point to play that game at 2 players? What do you feel about these like AIs or whatever, or these other like 3rd or 4th players? I guess mostly 3rd. What do you feel about 3rd players or AIs that add randomness to the game that cannot function as an actual human would? Would you still play those games? Is it still worth it to play them? Personally, I don't think so. I think for games like those, like classic art, just play it at 3. Otherwise, it's just not worth it in my opinion. But I would love to know what you think, because maybe you think differently. So anyway, so until next week, guys. Bye.